Thank you, Garret. Please hear our opening words by Elena Westbrook. In a world ravaged by violence, by hatred, by conflicts that seem eternal and insoluble, sometimes the only thing that we can do is to be still for a moment, to remind ourselves what is real. The sun that rose this morning, the dirt under our feet, the air whispering in and out of our lungs. This hour, try just to be present in each moment as it unfolds. Your simple attention is what makes these moments holy. It is my pleasure to welcome you to Buckman Bridge Unitarian Universalist Church, or BBUUC for short. We're a progressive spiritual community whose mission is to create and nourish a loving community that seeks justice and respect for all. No matter who you are or how you make your living, who you love or how you experience the sacred, we hope you will feel welcome here. We welcome you to this congregation in the fullness of who you are, your beliefs and traditions, your identity, your story, and the wisdom of your years. We welcome you to share your spiritual journey. In our presence, may you always seek your truth, speak your truth in love, and live your truth through service. And through all your days in our presence, may you experience love. Unitarian Universalism has no shared creed or doctrine. We're not going to tell you what you must believe. We won't tell you there's one book, one path, or one way to religious truth. Instead, we'll challenge you to discover how you find and make meaning for yourself. And we do this together in a supportive church community. Ours is a living tradition that evolves and moves to the rhythms of mystery and wonder, prophecy, wisdom, teachings from ancient and modern sources, and nature itself. We operate as autonomous congregations connected as members of the Unitarian Universalist Association. We work democratically to govern our congregations and our association and articulate the values we covenant to affirm and promote. These values are also living and evolving and are on the back of your order of service. I want to extend a special greeting to guests or newcomers. We hope that you will stop by our welcome table for a name tag so that we can greet you by name, and for information about our church and the Greater Unitarian Universalist denomination. You can also find out about our regularly scheduled Learn About UU and Learn About BBUC classes. Feel free to ask any of our members any questions you may have, and we'll invite you to stay after the service for fellowship, including coffee and other beverages, refreshments, and most of all, conversation. We would love the opportunity to meet you and welcome you in person. Please see your order of service, our monthly newsletter, our weekly emails, and the bulletin boards for information on our community's many activities and events. And this month is going to be full of them. Thanks also to all of our volunteers who make our Sunday worship, religious education classes, and fellowship hour happen. We're about to enter sacred time, made so by our presence and intention. So please turn off or silence your phones. And as you do so, I invite each of us to be here in this moment. And as our song leaders make their way to the chancel, please locate hymn number 132 in your gray hymnal and rise in body or spirit to join us in singing Bright Those Jewels. This may be new to many of you, so I'm going to ask Gary to play it through once before we join in for all three verses. Thank you so much. As a creedless faith, the members of this church are joined together in a covenantal relationship, which we individually and collectively enter into with intention. Each Unitarian Universalist congregation chooses how they will express their vision of covenant. Each Sunday, we speak the words of our covenant together, both as a reminder and an expression of our faith in our fellow congregants. The words are in your order of service. Please join me. We covenant to engage one another with honesty, kindness, and respect, to value diversity, seek understanding of our differences, and practice gracious accountability with care, love, and empathy. We make these promises to those who are here and those yet to come, so that we may be a safe, welcoming, and beloved community of acceptance, learning, and transformation. And now I will invite you to please rise again in body or spirit and sing together our call to worship. The words are printed in your order of service. Each year, on December 1st, the world commemorates World AIDS Day. People around the world unite to show support for people living with HIV and to remember those who have died from AIDS-related illnesses. This day of commemoration was started in 1988 by the World Health Organization. It's a day of solidarity for people around the world who are affected by HIV, and for voices to unite by sharing experiences, remembering those lost, and standing together in the fight against HIV. It's also a day to bridge new and effective programs and policies across different sectors around HIV/AIDS. The theme this year is collective action, sustain and accelerate HIV progress. Great strides have been made since the first known cases of AIDS were reported in 1981. However, it remains a public health challenge. World AIDS Day is an opportunity for us to honor the more than 32 million people worldwide who have died from AIDS-related illnesses. On World AIDS Day, awareness-raising activities take place around the globe. Many people wear a red ribbon, the universal symbol of awareness of, support for, and solidarity with people living with HIV. People living with HIV make their voices heard on issues important in their lives, and groups of people living with HIV and other civil society organizations involved in the AIDS response mobilize in support of the communities that they serve and to raise funds. Events highlight the current state of the epidemic. World AIDS Day remains as relevant today as it's always been, reminding people and governments that HIV has not gone away. There is still a critical need for increased funding for the AIDS response, to increase awareness of the impact of HIV on people's lives, to end stigma and discrimination, and to improve the quality of life of people living with HIV. Will Donna Zimmerman please come forward and light our chalice this morning as I share with you these words. In recognition of World AIDS Day today, our chalice words are adapted from a prayer originally offered by the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, or ELCA. While the adjective evangelical may foster a knee-jerk reaction of the negative sort, I was pleased to read that the ELCA ordains women and LGBT people, performs same-sex marriages, and membership in general is pro-choice. The current version of their hymnal includes gender-neutral invocations and blessings, and they have altered all of the psalms and most of their hymns and liturgy to remove masculine pronouns in reference to God. So we're going to lift up their words this morning. Loving God, come near to us and to all the earth on this World AIDS Day. Give strength to those who work for a cure, resolve to those who advocate for solutions, tenderness to caregivers and medical professionals, comfort to those who mourn on this day, and a bold spirit of welcomeness to those who visit our church. And Donna, if you'll remain at the chancel to illuminate our first Advent candle, as today is the first Sunday of Advent, symbolizing hope. Please hear the words of Erica Hewitt. Many years ago, thousands of years ago, people in the Northern Hemisphere were thought to have gathered wreaths of evergreen and lit fires as signs of hope in the coming spring and renewed light. The custom was kept alive by Christians, and by the 16th century, the Advent wreath had gradually spread across many parts of the world. Today, Advent is the period of 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas. It's also the time when days are shortest, when cold settles in, as it definitely has this morning, and when people need the cheer brought by the promise of light and warmth. As we light one more candle each Sunday, this Advent wreath symbolizes our waiting experience. Week by week, the candles remind us that darkness of fear and hopelessness recedes as more and more light is shed into the world. The flame of each new candle reminds us that more is yet to come. On this first Sunday in Advent, we light the candle of hope with words of Macrina Wilderker, a Benedictine monastic. I was just thinking one morning during prayer how much alike hope and baking powder are. Quietly getting what is best in me to rise, awakening the hint of eternity within. May this candle awaken the best in us, connect us to the eternal, and give life to our hope. Thank you, Donna. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all of the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and our institutional well-being. As our offertory ushers, Ron Furster and Adaro Harrison, come forward this morning, I invite you to participate in the blessing of giving as Marianne and Marilyn as Ron and Adaro accept your gifts. There are many ways to give by using the QR code in your order of service or the link on our website. Whether you choose to add to the plate or not as it comes to you, we ask you to pass it down your row and back to the row behind you as a participant in this ritual. At the conclusion of the offering, I'll invite you to stand in body or spirit and join in hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. Jennifer Bacmeister is a longtime member and has served in many leadership roles in our congregation. You can read more about her in your order of service. I especially want to thank her for stepping in at the last minute to present a substitute sermon today and for her dedicated and committed service on our worship team. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer will first share today's reading, followed by the sermon, "'Tis the Season to be Mindful," written by Reverend Dr. Sandra Fees, a UU minister, poet, spiritual leader, and facilitator. She retired after serving 18 years as a minister of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Berks County in Pennsylvania. Jennifer, the pulpit is yours.
Good morning. Sure, I can do this without smacking the microphone. The reading today is from a book called Everyone at This Party Has Two Names. I didn't look to see why it was named that, but it was the author is Brad Modlin. And this poem is called What You Missed That Day You Were Absent from Fourth Grade. Mrs. Nelson explained how to stand still and listen to the wind, how to find meaning in pumping gas, how peeling potatoes can be a form of prayer. She took questions on how not to feel lost in the dark. After lunch, she distributed worksheets that covered ways to remember your grandfather's voice. Then the class discussed falling asleep without feeling you had forgotten to do something important, and how to believe the house you wake up in is your home. This prompted Mrs. Nelson to draw a chalkboard diagram detailing how to chant the Psalms during cigarette breaks, and how not to squirm for sound when your own thoughts are all you hear, also that you are enough. The English lesson was that I am is a complete sentence. And just before the afternoon bell, she made the math equation look easy, the one that proves that hundreds of questions and feeling cold and all those nights spent looking for whatever it was you lost, and one person do add up to something. I love that poem because it explains why so many of us don't know how to do those things, because we missed that one day in 4th grade. As Lyndon said, the sermon today was written by the Reverend Dr. Sandra Fees, so I am merely the conduit for her words. And she begins, "Last week, I went to hear guitarist Leo Kotke and the Turtle Island String Quartet at the Scottish Rite Cathedral in West Reading." That would be Pennsylvania. They were playing carols and songs representing the various winter festivals, Hanukkah, Diwali, Christmas, winter solstice. The quartet is up for a Grammy Award. As the concert began, I was restless. Even though the space is large and modern and the seating pretty comfortable, I just couldn't seem to get comfortable. I kept crossing and uncrossing my legs and crossing and uncrossing my arms. I rearranged my coat. I sunk deeper into my seat. I leaned to the right. I leaned to the left. I sat up straight. At some point, I realized I was fidgeting and the people around me weren't. I looked around the cathedral. It seemed like everyone else in that space was completely still and silent, except for me and the musicians. While I squirmed, the rest of the room was riveted on the music, so I tried really hard not to move, to just sit still. Have you ever tried that in the midst of fidgeting? Well, it doesn't work well, and it didn't work well then. I was there to hear the music, but I was really unable to be attentive to it because there was something else distracting me. The stress and the busyness of the season and of the day was arising in me. I seemed to be physically restless, but in truth, it was my mind that was racing in all directions. You could say it was almost like I wasn't really there at all. After trying to ignore what was happening to me, I gave up. I acknowledged to myself that I was feeling restless and that I was worrying about some things. Once I recognized that, I could embrace it and then began to attend to the music right there in my midst. I began to notice that the musicians seemed to really enjoy playing together. I noticed how they interacted with one another. I noticed how they held their instruments with a kind of reverence. I heard the soulful, jazzy sounds of the quartet, and suddenly I was fully present to the music. I became conscious of the beauty of their playing. It would be wonderful if we could be mindful all the time, day in and day out, living with a deep awareness. I have always thought that being attentive and mindful should be a simple matter. It seems like it should be as natural as breathing, but it really isn't. It is hard work, and it takes time, but it is something we all have the capability to do if we choose to. Buddhist teacher and author Jack Kornfield says, mindfulness is an innate human capacity to deliberately pay full attention to where we are, to our actual experience, and to learn from it. Mindfulness is at the heart of Buddhist teaching. The technique of mindfulness directs our attention to the present, allowing us to experience it more deeply and more fully. Rather than drifting through our lives on automatic pilot, we notice our thoughts, experiences, and actions. Kornfield says, much of our day we spend on automatic pilot. People know the experience of driving somewhere, pulling up to the curb, and all of a sudden realizing, wow, I was hardly aware I was even driving. How did I get here? When we pay attention, it is gracious, which means that there is space for our joys and sorrows, our pains and losses, all to be held in a peaceful way. Kornfield's quote ends there. Being mindful creates space for all the emotions and events of our lives. We may mistakenly think it is a feel-good kind of thing, but actually mindfulness draws us closer to the trouble as well as the joy of the people and situations we encounter. When we begin to notice, when we awaken to the world around us, we also open our hearts to some harsh realities and to the range of human suffering. Busyness and stress is one reason we operate on autopilot, but pain is another reason we sometimes sleepwalk through our lives. If we have experienced abuse or mental illness, if we have deep pain and loss, being mindful will require us to engage that pain. This can be enormously risky and scary. I sometimes hear people say they don't read the paper or watch the news because it is just too painful. I sometimes feel that way too. News of the world's suffering can be overwhelming, and our response can be to flee from the grief and pain. But turning away from friends, from family, from the world doesn't help anyone. It doesn't even really help us. We all know that. It isn't possible to shut out the pain. In all kinds of ways, the world still seeps into our lives. We might question how much it matters that we pay attention to the world's suffering. Any of us who have been a companion to a person in pain or has had someone do that for us knows that just the simple act of bearing witness to another person's pain can make a tremendous difference. Margaret Wheatley, the author of Turning to One Another, says, it doesn't make the suffering go away, although it sometimes changes the experience of pain and grief. When I bear witness, I turn toward another, and I am willing to let their experience enter my heart. I step into the picture by being willing to be open to their experience, to not turn away my gaze. End of quote. Mindfulness can be healing in this way. It can open us to human suffering and the possibility of transformation. When we are mindful, we notice the subtle expressions on the faces of those we love. We notice when a dear friend says she is okay, but something else is stirring beneath the surface. We see the beauty of a thin, beaded layer of ice on a tree branch and encounter a moment of transcending wonder. We stop to smell the freshly ground coffee and give thanks for a glorious morning. We look into the despairing face of a person in need rather than turning away. Our hearts may be aching from all that we cannot do, but our hearts are uplifted by expressions of compassion and care. Even though we may sometimes want to avoid or deny the world around us, most of us would like to have a greater awareness in our lives if we only had the time or knew how. In his book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh describes the practice of mindfulness in our daily life. He says, when you are walking along a path leading into a village, you can practice mindfulness. Walking along a dirt path surrounded by patches of green grass. If you practice mindfulness, you will experience that path, the path leading into the village. You practice by keeping this one thought alive. I'm walking along the path leading into the village. You keep that one thought, but not just repeating it like a machine over and over again. Machine thinking is the opposite of mindfulness. If we're really engaged in mindfulness while walking along the path to the village, then we will consider the act of each step we take as an infinite wonder, and a joy will open in our hearts like a flower, enabling us to enter the world of reality. When we are walking, we are aware of our walking. When we are washing dishes, we are aware of washing dishes. When we are listening to music, we are aware of listening to the music. This is what it means to be present. A regular meditation practice can facilitate this, but we do not need to learn to meditate to be mindful. We can bring an attitude of mindfulness to any of our daily activities. The important thing is to keep our own consciousness alive to the present reality. Rather than focusing on the past or the future, rather than worrying about some other time or place, we pay attention to the life we are living now. Rather than multitasking, making dinner, helping our children with their homework, watching television, and checking email all at the same time, we make a choice to fully engage in whatever task is at hand. This is a great time of year for us to focus on being more mindful. It is a time when we are especially bombarded with busyness and excess, while what we desperately long for is a meaningful observance that emphasizes people, spirituality, and endearing traditions. When asked what they want at this time of year, over 80% of Americans say they fantasize about simple gifts, natural decorations, a fire, traditional food, leisurely schedules, music, time spent out of doors, and an emphasis on family activities. Now, when the Reverend Dr. Fee wrote this sermon, it was just a week and a day before Christmas. That's how her sermon's written. But her message holds true 3 weeks out, and she continues. But it is not too late to bring the miracle of mindfulness to this season. We can deepen our awareness of our own thoughts and actions. We can model mindfulness for our children and work to create traditions that reflect our values. We can notice what we cherish about the season and what is depleting our spirits. We can pay attention to what matters most to us and what is less important. When we learn, what we learn can help us shape our lives in ways that bring deeper significance now and throughout the coming year. We can spend time on the activities that nourish us and with the people who nurture us and need our nurturing. We can become awakened to ourselves, the human condition, and the world. 'Tis the season to be mindful. I hope every day you will, in at least some little way, take time to awaken to the world around you. May it be so in all of our lives. Amen.
As our song leaders come forward, please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 124, Be That Guide. And we'll hear it played through once and then join in for all 4 verses. Please remain standing for the benediction. Donna please come forward and extinguish the candles and the chalice? Please hear the words of our sermon author, Reverend Dr. Sandra Fees, entitled Breathed into the World. Whoever you are, wherever you go, may you know the stillness of winter and the call to love. May you see the moon silvering the night sky, and let the dark of midnight plunge you into your truest self and fling you back out again to a world in need of who you are. May there be the familiar carols you know by heart and new melodies to set you free. May there be feasting and frolicking, kindness and wonderment, and may there be wise people to follow a star in the east and a child to teach us to love, and enough magic to let the imagination go wild, to let Christmas arrive with its enchantments, with its glitter, glow, and gold, to let what wants to be born break through. May the presence of the holy crowd out fear, hate, and worry, and proclaim in this moment that peace and goodwill might yet be breathed into the world, and avow that we too can give birth to love wherever we go, whoever we are. May it be so. Amen.